welcome back to my channel, everyone. I am very excited for today's video. I am going to speak very specifically about running, and even more specifically about training for a marathon. It is a different beast altogether. Like they say, it really is true. A marathon starts at mile 20. I was not at all a long distance runner. I would run a 5K, even a 10K felt long to me. So I never imagined that I would even entertain the idea of running a marathon. But I figured if I'm gonna run a marathon, I want to challenge myself and try to go for that BQ. So if you are new to long distance running, or you maybe have run one or two marathons before and you're feeling more confident with the distance and you're thinking, you know what, I wanna go for a BQ, then this video is definitely for you. So here are the 5 tips I wanted to share on my journey to attain that BQ, that Boston qualifying time that allowed me the entry into the 2019 Boston Marathon. Tip number 1 is picking the race. So I found it very helpful if you were to go online and you just Google best marathons to BQ, and put the year prior. So if you want to BQ in 2022, this year, then I would say best marathons to BQ 2021. And what that does is that gives you a list of 20 to 30 races, top marathons I picked in the US. So top 20 to 30 marathons in the US where they had the most Boston qualifiers come from. Typically on that list is going to be the Boston Marathon, the New York Marathon, the Chicago. Those are usually on there. But you can hopefully find maybe one marathon in your own state, or maybe one that is not too far for you to travel and run. Tip number 2, it's time to design a plan. You need a plan so you know how to execute come race day. Hal Higdon is a fantastic tool. It was free. It's online. You just type in Hal Higdon. I think there are some programs that you can pay for if you want some more customized coaching. But other than that, I found it very resourceful. It breaks it down into intermediate, novice, advanced. It's for all skill levels, and it gives you a template to follow. I personally use the Advanced 2 marathon training template, which again was 18 weeks broken down as a guide, and it tells you day by day, advice of this day you're going to do your long run, this day you do your intervals, this day you're going to do your pace run. And it's important to know your pace. What is the pace? So you're not going to run, a full marathon or even 20 miles at your goal race pace. Until marathon day, you're not going to do that. But you will definitely need to know what your goal pace is, and you will have pace runs. You're going to want to feel the pace. What pace do you need to maintain for 26.2 miles in order to BQ? And the way you're going to find your pace is you need to go to the Boston Athletic Association and look up qualifying times. And it's broken down by gender and age. So for my age bracket was 40 to 44. And now the time that you need for that range is going to be 3 hours and 40 minutes. The advice is that even though 3 hours and 40 minutes is a Boston qualifying time, when Boston opens registration, they take the fastest times. And it's such a popular race that what often does happen is that so many people apply with fast times that even though you ran a marathon in 3 hours and 39 minutes, you're not going to get to run Boston perhaps because they put the cutoff at 3 hours, 38 minutes, and 30 seconds. So that's what happens. They pick the fastest times in each category. And so even though, again, you technically got a BQ, you may not get to run the actual Boston Marathon if that is your end goal. So with that in mind, the idea is that you want to beat your Boston Marathon qualifying time by 5 minutes. That's what the goal would be. So for, again, I'm talking about, my range. If your goal is to run it a 3:40 is your BQ, then you're going to want to go for a 3:35. The next tool that you're going to want to use in your developing this plan is a pace calculator. You can, again, Google pace calculator, and it's super easy to punch in the time. So 3 hours, 35 minutes, the distance, 26.2 miles. What is your pace? That would give you an 8-minute, 12-second pace. So that means you need to maintain an 8-minute, 12-second per mile pace for the 26.2 miles, which is not easy. And so those pace runs, my advice would be, you're gonna at first start out with like doing a 2 or 3 mile run at race pace. And so you're gonna wanna feel that 8-minute pace. So don't train to an actual 8:12. You're gonna wanna train down to an 8-minute. I wouldn't train to 8:10. I do an 8 minutes, because the real marathon begins at mile 20. Your legs are going to get tired. You're going to have to account for some things. You just don't know what's going to happen on race day. So my advice is, if I need an 8:12, that's my minimum, 3:35. If I need an 8:12 pace, I'm going to train down to an 8. So I share that with you along with designing your plan. Tip number 3, find some really good local spots that allow you to run those longer distances without frequent stops. So what I mean by that is, while it's okay, maybe like a 3 or 4 mile run in the neighborhood and you have stoplights or stop signs and crosswalks, that might be okay. But there's going to be 1 to 2 times a week that you're going to need to do these longer runs. So 10, 11, 12, 14 mile runs. And I would say it would be a really good idea to scout out some places locally, close by, wherever you live, that you can go and run a nice longer distance without those frequent stops. Here we are, tip number 4. Just to recap, you have selected the marathon that you're going to run in hopes of getting that BQ. You designed a plan based on the date of that race and where you are right now in your fitness level. And number 3, tip 3, was finding good local spots that you can run. So for some variety and also long stretches, because you're going to need those longer runs where you can do that uninterrupted, meaning not stopping too frequently. So here's tip number 4, is that make sure that you sprinkle some courses in there that are going to be very similar to the marathon you're actually going to be running. And so what I mean by that is, if you're going to have a marathon that does have some, some rolling hills, you don't want to just be running flat. You don't want to run flat anyways. You definitely want some variety. You need some variety in your training plan. But an example of this would be a Revel Marathon. I did one Revel Marathon in Utah, the Cottonwood, and Revel Marathons are known to be downhill marathons. Big misconception is you think that makes it an easy marathon. I believe there is no such thing as an easy marathon. Some marathons are harder than others, of course, but there is no such thing as an easy marathon. So I am very thankful that I did get some great advice to make sure that I did sprinkle some good downhill practice training runs throughout my 18-week of training for that marathon, because around mile 13, 14, there were many runners that were pulling to the side because they were having a real bad lower back pain. You could see them kind of stretching out their hamstrings, their knees. Running downhill for that length of time is really hard on your joints and hard on your lower back. By the time you get to mile 18 in that course specifically, you hit flat and then it kind of goes out and back for 5 miles. So 18 to 23 is pretty challenging, and you're running downhill for mostly 18 miles. When you hit flat, it feels like you're running a massive hill because your legs are just shot. So tons and tons of runners stopped and started walking around mile 18, 19, 20 because again, their legs were just completely blown out. So by the time they hit that out and back flat with those rolling hills, even though they were small rolling hills, their legs just gave. So that is my tip for you. Make sure that you find a good spot, a local place that has similar obstacles that you're gonna find in the marathon that you've selected. So if you have some hills in there, make sure you do some hill work. If you have downhills like I did in Revel, make sure you have some downhill training. So that would be my best advice for you. Tip number 4. All right, my final tip for you today. Tip number 5. So everyone knows that of course you're gonna need good shoes. In fact, that's the number one question I'll get when people ask me about running. What shoes do I recommend? What shoes do I personally like? What shoes did I run my marathons in? Okay, before I tell you about the shoes, everybody knows you're gonna need good shoes, and there's plenty of options out there now and places that can help you go get fitted and adjust and find some good shoes. But nobody tells you how important socks are. If you have great shoes, what difference does it make if you have some really crappy socks from, a very, generic brand, like a thin sock, it had a hole in the heel and the toes, and what difference does the shoe make? You need good socks. Good socks are not going to be cheap, but you really, really need good socks. Long distance running, you are putting your feet through a lot. So you need to love your feet, appreciate what they're doing for your body, that they're letting you reach this goal. There are a couple brands that I really, really like. So these are Balega Socks. I will link them down below as well. They look so tiny. Balega Socks are just so, like you put these on your feet and your feet are just saying, thank you, thank you. They're so soft and they provide so much cushion. And when you're running, like I said, those long distances, your feet, it's, kind of gets sweaty and wet, and these are great for absorbing that, and just, again, giving your feet the protection they need as they are working so hard for you. So Balega socks are fantastic. Come race day, or for those really long distance training runs, your 13, 14, 15, 16 mile runs, I don't use Balega. I instead use these Injinji socks. These are these socks that they look funny, but they have little toe separators. These are wonderful for those long distance runs. So what happens between your toes, again, I was not a long distance runner. I learned it the hard way. So I'm sharing with you things I wish someone told me. So what happens between your toes is you get blisters and sores, and that's just so uncomfortable. When you have a blister in the middle of your toes, it's already hard that you're going to have to go run 12 miles. And so what makes it even more difficult is having blisters between your toes. So anyway, these socks are phenomenal and I highly recommend them. They are worth every single dollar that you have to spend. I mean, these socks, and they're probably $10 to $15 a pair, which yes, that's expensive, but they are going to last. You can wash these over and over and over and over again, and you're going to run a lot as you train for this marathon. So do not neglect good socks. Okay, so now that I went on about my socks, these are the actual shoes that I wore for my 2019 Boston Marathon, and I did train in these. As I will talk about in another video, it is wise to train in everything that you wear on race day should not be the first time you're wearing it. So those shoes that you're wearing, the socks, you should have already worn them in training and be comfortable. But anyways, these are the New Balance 680 V5. They are the Tech Ride New Balance model, and these were they're beaten up now, but they were great. They just fit my foot very nicely. I found these were very comfortable. I do also get inserts inside Dr. Scholl's, inserts that I'll add to my shoes for extra support. And that's, again, just my personal preference. So I would say it is wise to definitely go to a local running store and just try different shoes on, see how they fit on your foot for your width and your comfort level. But you can't go wrong with the Balega and the Injinji Socks. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I would love to hear what you have to say. If you have chosen a marathon, if you have any questions about a marathon that you're thinking about, please feel free to leave a comment below. And if you have any questions, again, about socks or about the training plan, please reach out. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. Until next time, bye.